Hi. Today we are going to discuss a concept that is not employed enough in government policy making and when people discuss politics in general, which is multipartisanship. We are going to discuss the difference between multipartisanship and bipartisanship, and why the concept of multipartisanship should be used more frequently rather than just relying on bipartisanship and partisanship. To begin, let's start by defining what partisanship is for those people who are here who may not quite grasp what it is. In American politics, a partisan is an individual who has a psychological tendency to identify with one or more political parties. Partisanship in politics is when a political party and/or its members only support their party's beliefs and goals and refuse to compromise with members of other political parties in order to achieve their goals. Partisan politics often leads to large support from one party and limited to no support from members of other political parties. It can also lead to major delays in passing necessary legislation that is needed to protect the well-being of the people and/or keep the government running smoothly. One example of partisan legislation is when Democratic legislators excluded amendments from a major budget bill that would have prohibited the use of Medicare or Medicaid funds to cover abortion costs, which will likely lead to intense disagreements between Republicans and Democrats over whether or not the bill should be passed. Based on what the definition of what partisanship is, which was provided earlier in this video, it would be safe to say that bipartisanship is when a political party and/or its members support their party's beliefs and goals, along with some of the principles and goals held by another political party, and they're willing compromise with members of that other political party in order to achieve some of their goals. Most of the time, this is used to refer to when a large number of Republicans and Democrats agree on what and/or how a particular policy issue should be dealt with. Another example of this is the Green New Deal. While U.S. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and U.S. Senator Edward Markey introduced it to the U.S. legislature, the Green New Deal was first supported by the Green Party, specifically Howie Hawkins and Jill Stein. Multipartisanship is when a political party and/or its members support their party's beliefs and goals, along with some of the principles and goals held by various political parties, and they're willing compromise with members of that other political parties in order to achieve some of their goals. Typically, this happens most frequently on policy issues that a majority of society cares deeply about and agrees on how and/or why it should be dealt with. One example of a multipartisan issue is crime. While they don't agree on how to reduce and/or prevent it from occurring, most parties agree it is important to deal and, for the most part, on why it matters, which is because crime causes people a lot of physical and psychological harm and the government is expected to help keep the people living under its jurisdiction safe from harm when possible. There are a few reasons why multipartisanship should be used more often instead of relying exclusively on partisan and/or bipartisan support. One of the reasons why multipartisanship should be used more frequently when designing policies and/or legislation is it may be useful in terms of getting more of the public to support that bill or policy, which can help get it passed and get more people to believe that government is listening to them and/or looking out for their well-being. Another reason is by having people from the wide array of different political parties designing legislation and policies, they can choose from the wide range of different ideas and approaches when making it, which promotes creativity and oftentimes can lead to the finished policy being more effective than a policy designed by a bunch of like-minded people from the same party. Lastly, if more political parties were to cooperate more frequently, it might get the public to be more tolerant of the political ideologies of numerous parties and in turn reduce the amount of violence that occurs because of disputes over people having different political views and/or identities.